Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
Welcome in. It's Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here on, we're recording this Thursday, early Thursday afternoon, a little post-lunch Banneret Podcast action for you as we had a busy night last night, busy weekend coming up, busy day again today with the spring. How you doing, boys? How are you feeling? Are you getting any sleep or what?
Yes.
Eric, I'm sure, is getting some more since we're through the Australian Open, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and softball games tend to start earlier, but all things considered, it's good. It's busy, but good busy, right? Like it's good. Like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's busier than it normally would be. How about you, Murph?
Yeah, I don't know. Like in today's society, does it sound like I'm a slacker if I say, yeah, I'm sleeping pretty soundly? I don't know.
No, you're perfectly fine. You don't watch the Australian Open and you don't have kids. It's totally
he's
all
watching
right.
Dylan. He's watching Dylan Moore in spring training baseball on ESPN there at the Mariners.
And I'll say
is that AL MVP candidate Dylan Moore?
Dylan Moore. How about Thad Ward pitching for the Red Sox? How about Dan Winkler being probably a big piece of the Cubs bullpen this year? We're gonna have some pretty serious UCF baseball players.
Good year for UCF baseball in 2021. All right. Speaking of which, we'll talk about UCF baseball a little bit later on in the show. Whopping Ole Miss, number one team in the country, or so we thought. And then following that up with a very close loss at Stetson last night in a really bizarre game at times. Lots to talk about with softball, volleyball, soccer, tennis. We'll talk about football and the legitimacy that Gus Malzahn has brought to the table in terms of guys coming over and transferring into UCF. But we start with basketball. All right, so this is it. Today being Thursday, March the 4th, marks the end of the regular season for both UCF men's and women's basketball. All right, and we'll start with the women who on Tuesday night, they fell to USF 65-62 down at the Yuengling Center to drop to 13-3, 11-2 in the conference. But they play them again at home today. So what does this mean? Well, UCF cannot win the American regular season championship. USF sealed that up. However, as you have talked about in the past, Eric Lopez, UCF can put a major feather in their cap in terms of the net ranking if they can knock off South Florida today. As far as the net rankings are concerned for women's basketball, USF right now is pretty high. It is pretty high up.
24th.
24th, yeah. Which
UCF's 44.
Yeah. So right now, at 44, UCF is kind of, they're right on that bubble, aren't they, Eric? So they kind of need this game tonight, don't they?
It's the definition of the bubble. Heck, the whole last year is all bubbles. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a fascinating situation right now. This is a huge week for the program in a lot of ways. And I don't know if we'll get into the whole why they potentially don't win the regular season title if they win today. But look, this is a big game in a lot of ways. If you win this game, you get a win over a top 25 team in South Florida. That's a huge, feather in your resume in the cap because right now they're
number
big
15
wins.
in the AP, right?
Right. Their resume right now, their best wins are Houston. They swept Houston during the season, but Houston's a bubble team. They swept Tulane, but Tulane's outside the bubble. And then LSU's a bubble team. So you won't have a win against a team that is secure in the field. Well, that would take care of itself if you beat South Florida today. I really do. I think if you beat South Florida, it takes some of the pressure off this upcoming conference championship tournament going on in Texas. If you and then if you win this game, you end up a half a game behind South Florida in the standings, and I think have a legitimate gripe and dispute about really getting screwed out of the conference regular season title. But that's only if you win. If you lose, now you've gotten swept by your rivals. Now you're probably on the outside bubble. You definitely, I think, at that point have to get to the final. And, and then it's going to be really razor thin. And it's a very tricky situation this year because it's worth pointing out the NCAA tournament this year is in San Antonio, the entire thing, in the entire state of Texas. It's not like in the past where you would have certain markets. Like, remember when UCF made it in 2019, they got placed in Miami, which I always felt was done on purpose. Like, a lot of people are like, whoa, they were one of the last teams in. I'm like, they did that just so they can fit them in Miami. Well, UCF doesn't have that luxury right now. So that's why, to me, this is a critical game for them, because if they lose, they're going to have to get to the final to get in. Otherwise, they could be looking outside and missing out on the tournament.
They're locked into the number 2 seed right now in the conference tournament, which means that they would have a bye and they wouldn't play their first game until Tuesday, March the 9th at 7 p.m. That game would be televised on ESPN Plus. Now, they would also play the winner of Game 2, which is between the number 10 and number 7 seeds in the conference. And taking a quick glance at the conference, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 is Cincinnati, 8, 9, 10 is Memphis right now. So, right, I mean, it's Cincinnati kind of worries me a little bit because you just don't know what you're going to get from them. I mean, they
just knocked off Houston.
Or they just knocked off Houston, yeah.
Yeah, which is huge. Big blow to Houston and their chances of the tournament to lose to Cincinnati. And they've got the best player in the league. Whether she wins Player of the Year or not, I don't know. But Emar Thomas is somebody that can take over a game.
Now, so UCF did beat them by double figures both times, though.
But that means, can you beat, it's the old theory, can you beat a team 3 times?
That's true. And UCF ran into that problem with them last year, right? Remember?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And they cannot afford to lose that game. They lose that game, they're done. They're toast. Now, do you know right now, what does it look like as who's would be on their side of the bracket as far as the 3 seed potential? Is it Houston or Tulane?
3 right now is Houston, but they're at 12-5. Tulane's at 12-6. And just taking a quick peek at the remaining schedule on the women's side, Houston and Tulane. So Houston lost to Cincinnati today. Tulane beat ECU, so it looks like this is pretty much in the bag right now. So neither of them are playing today.
Right. So Houston would be the likely opponent for UCF in the semifinals. Again, can UCF beat them a third time? Well, they may have to make sure that Houston doesn't jump them as far as the field of 64. And one of my concerns, honestly, is if it's close between UCF and Houston, if the committee determines that it's close, I think they're going to go with Houston because Houston can bus to the NCAA tournament. UCF cannot. And I know that's a really, terrible way.
That would be a really crappy way to decide it.
Yeah, it'd be like kind of rewarding a team winning a conference regular season title but via forfeit. But, who would do that, such a thing? Thank you. No, you're right, Jeff. That would be, but would it shock you? I mean, how many times have we talked about teams being busing to certain places for postseason, and the NCAA, the last thing they want to do is spend a ton of money. So I do worry about that. That's why, again, I emphasize, in my opinion, they've got to beat USF tonight. Because if you beat USF tonight, it takes some of the pressure off the conference tournament. If you lose, you have to get to the final. You have to get to the final. And I think at that point, I think you did enough. I think this league is going to get 2 in. It's just a question of hopefully 3. I think the chances of 3 got hurt by Houston losing to Cincinnati. We'll see. But this is a huge, huge game. And the only thing that's unfortunate is it should have decided the regular season title. But for whatever peculiar reasons, it's not. So,
well, that has to go back to that Memphis forfeit, which, by the way, we went back and looked, and no one has adequately explained this. The reason why. Now, of course, just to recap, the official reasoning was that Memphis decided not to play the game due to officially what are being termed non-COVID related health reasons. Well, what in the world does that mean? And that's not an adequate explanation for what happened. So that's why USF has that half game edge on UCF. And that should, and listen, that doesn't take away from the effort that USF put through for this. No. They've had an amazing season. Jose Fernandez, listen, you gotta applaud the guy.
There's no two bigger fans of Jose Fernandez than you and me, Jeff.
Right.
There's no two bigger fans.
He's done it the hard way. He's done it the right way over there. And every year UConn was standing in their way. They finally get to celebrate a conference title that has eluded them for a long time. You can't tell me that team's not good enough to win a conference title in any other league in the nation. And they finally did it. But there's going to be this little asterisk hanging over the top of it, and that's a bummer, not just for UCF, it's a bummer for USF as well.
That's if UCF beats South Florida. It all goes back to that. If USF wins, this conversation was moot. But you're right. If UCF beats USF, there is an asterisk. And I know that's going to come off as, well, you guys are the UCF podcast stuff. No, we're pretty upfront about it. I mean, like I said, we've given credit to USF. We're both covered Jose Fernandez. I mean, heck, hello, me and Jose, Cubanos, hello, we're boys. All right? I'm telling you, we're big fans, okay? And we're just telling it like it is. It's not like the other sites who act like middle school, think they're in middle school, and take little swipes and like cute, adorable.
Jesus.
But again, I'm fired up. The Cuban coffees.
Eric's coming out guns a-blazing today. Well, you should record on Thursday afternoons more often.
Amen to that. I'm bothered by the forfeit. It really bothers me because, and again, it should be decided on the court, and we have no clear answer. Like, okay, so Memphis didn't feel like playing there. The other thing that bothers me, let's just say for argument's sake, okay, they have reasonable reason for why they came to that decision. As a conference, couldn't you have flipped the schedule at the end here where UCF lost a game with SMU last Wednesday? That's why they didn't play last Wednesday. You could have shuffled the schedule where Memphis could have played UCF or Wichita on that Wednesday. That way, UCF and USF have the same amount of games, and it's decided on the court, not by the forfeit. And I think the conference got caught here with their pants down. And I think part of it is they were so used to UConn running over the league, going undefeated, that there was no reason to really worry about the conference standings and the results. And I really do think they thought South Florida was going to do the same thing, except they got run over by Houston. And I think the league is like, oh, okay. It's just unfortunate. And again, nothing against South Florida. Jose I'm a huge fan of his and his program, and I think they deserve a banner. But I think UCF, these players also deserve the better fate. Maybe they will use this as a chip, if not just for this game against South Florida, but maybe use this as a chip on the shoulder in Texas. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, if I was Coach Abe, I'd certainly do that. The other chip I would use on my shoulder is the fact that, on Tuesday night, UCF was down 18-5 after the first. They were down 17 at the break and staged an astonishing comeback late in this game. Alicia Lewis had 27 points. She hit 6 threes. She needed 7, though, because first of all, she hit a basket to get UCF within 1. USF made 2 free throws with 1.6 seconds left. And UCF, credit to Coach A, because she ran a gorgeous full court inbounds play with 1.6 to get Alicia a look. And she shot one up from about 27 feet and missed it off the iron. And that was the end of the game. That would have tied the game and sent it to overtime. Would have been an amazing comeback for UCF, who shot, by the way, 14 of 26 in the second half after a pretty bad first half where they went 7 to 27.
Alicia was very aggressive, and I think they're a better offensive team when she's aggressive. And the coaching staff, Coach Abe, have talked about this. She's a pass-first point guard, and sometimes she's too unselfish. She's the best shooter on the team. And it's not an accident. When she got aggressive, their offense got going in the second half. It just waited too long. They dug themselves too big of a hole, down 17 at the half. The South Florida bigs did a really good job on Kaba and Brittany Smith. I think they held them both to like 3 of 8 shooting and really took away UCF's inside game. That's something to look for in the next meeting or two is the South Florida did a nice job shutting down UCF in the post, and they hit some threes early. And yet, with all that, UCF was a shot away from sending the game to overtime remarkably.
Well, you know what? It wasn't as bad as it may have looked. Moss was 3 of 8. Brittany was 4 of 9. So that's 7 of 17 combined. 12 rebounds. They combined for 16 points. Now, not ideal, obviously, but not too bad. It's at least I don't think it was in that respect. So, but
they got dominated in the boards. I think that's the big. UCF when they're really clicking
36 to 27 on the boards. Yeah, that's really
against
good,
a team
especially
that lives in the perimeter. Against a team that lives in the perimeter. Yeah.
Defensive rebounds, by the way, that was the big difference. 23-16, USF had the edge. Offensive rebounds were pretty even, but it was the defensive rebounds that really hurt. All right,
those are good stats to keep an eye on as you watch them play later on, depending when you're listening to this, and if they play again in Texas.
Well, they're playing 5:00 on Thursday. In about 3.5 hours.
On the U.
On ESPNU. You can watch it right here, and or you can watch it right there. And like I said, there may not be a lot at stake for South Florida. There's a lot at stake for UCF here. So we'll be watching that and keeping a close eye on that. On the other side, on the men's side of things, well, senior day went. Well, I wouldn't say it went exactly as hoped because it was a wild game, Murph. It was, UCF was looking like they were going to run away with it against Tulsa, up by 16 at the half. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what Tulsa caught, but they just couldn't miss. In the second half, they were 15 of their first 17 from the field, and they were outscoring UCF in the first 12 minutes of the second half, 40-18. And I've never seen a team shoot so hot to start a second half in my entire life. That was you could almost frame it and put it on a wall. It was amazing. They were 15 of 17, 6 of 6 from 3, and they missed one free throw, or they hadn't missed a free throw at least at that point. It was really stunning. But then they regressed the living hell out of that mean because they went 2 of 11 the rest of the day, and UCF gets the 73-69 win. But that was a weird game, wasn't it, Murph?
That was, and that second half is just weirder because of how the first half unfolded, in which UCF only allows 21 points. Their second fewest points allowed in any half this year. They, shut Tulsa down to 30% shooting, and then Tulsa comes out and looks like Villanova in '95 playing Georgetown.
Well, except they weren't hitting layups and bunnies; they were hitting threes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I will say Tulsa made a concerted effort to drive more often in that second half, and their drives were like floaters and really great footwork and tough shots even in the lane. And then some of the threes were I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Got to tip your hat and move on. It just was one of those streaks where you're this is amazing. And this is not exactly a fantastically high-powered, efficient Tulsa offense, and for them to do that, pull that off, and for about 13 minutes there in the second half, where it just seemed like, okay, they're not going to miss again. It was nuts. UCF's defense, showed up late. They hit some big shots down the stretch, made their free throws, which was nice. I'll tell you, this team has really made some progress with free throws this year. We haven't talked about it much, but it's kind of amazing that this team is shooting as well as it is, considering where it's been under Johnny Dawkins throughout his entire tenure here. That's been important for this team. So UCF pulls out this win and now heads into tonight's season finale against ECU, where basically if they win against the worst team in the conference, they will clinch the 6th seed for next week's tournament.
Right. So ECU is last. UCF, by the way, 9-11 right now. So it's a bummer that the Temple game got scotched on Saturday because of COVID issues with Temple, apparently. Because had they won that game and then won, now granted, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But had they beaten Temple, which is not outside the realm of possibility, Temple's 4-10 in the conference in the year, UCF is 7-10. It would have been nice to get to 500 by the end of the regular season, right? Well, it's better than being sub 500 at the end of the regular season.
But that's all aesthetics. It doesn't really no one's gonna remember like you got the 9-10 or 10-10 or 9-9. Like just I don't really care much about that.
Fine, whatever. But all right. So this game in Greenville, though, you said UCF would clinch the 6th seed, which means they would play on the first day of the tournament, which would be Thursday, March the 11th, and they would play the number 11 seed dead last, which would be, at least as of right now, it looks like to be ECU again, because ECU is 2-8 in the league. They're last. Tulane is second to last at 4-12. So compare the win percentages, and ECU is not going to catch Tulane even if they beat UCF. So
they would actually.
Oh, they would. Oh.
Because now again, they beat UCF. Basically, ECU has 2 games left, and they're playing UCF tonight on Thursday, and then they play Cincinnati, also in Greenville.
Oh, that's right.
If they split those two, if they split one of those 2 games, they would finish with the same winning percentage as Tulane, who is not playing for the rest of the year. Tulane's last game got scrapped because they're supposed to play USF, but the conference has decided that Tulane has played too many. They've played 16 conference games.
They played too many games, and they're like, "You're done. You're not playing anymore."
So USF has only played 13, and Wichita State at this moment has played 12. So
surprised they didn't give a forfeit out on that.
So instead of giving Tulane a 17th game, they've now matched USF with Wichita State this weekend to give them an extra game each. That's why that game got.
But I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay. That's what I wish the women would have done. They should have done that for the women to balance out the schedule. I'll let it go. I'll try to let it go. Continue.
So UCF would. He's not going to let it go. So UCF, if they win tonight against ECU, and remember they had a pretty easy time with ECU a few weeks ago back here in Orlando. That was one of the games where I thought Jamil Reynolds played really, really well.
Yeah, he did.
They would be the 6th seed. That would be the late game on ESPNU next Thursday. That would actually be the lead-in to the women's final Thursday night. So you could have a UCF men's basketball first-round game preceding, hopefully, a UCF women's basketball championship final late Thursday
10
night.
10 p.m. Eastern, to be specific. Get your caffeine ready there, Murph.
Yeah, get some coffee. Get some coffee.
This tournament, guys, obviously it's going to be weird. But because every conference tournament's going to be weird, we got teams traveling into one centralized location, and right now there's questions about SMU, who hasn't played in nearly a month due to suspension of activities because of COVID-19. Temple has been suspended since the game against UCF got canned here last weekend. Will they be able to play? SMU is locked in right now to the 4 seed. Cincinnati is locked into the 5 seed, and those 2 teams, or at least SMU, is very optimistic that they will be playing in this tournament because SMU, on their official website, has already put down Cincinnati as its scheduled opponent for the 4-5 game next Friday. Now,
alrighty then.
I think it's just, yeah. But I think it's not. I don't think that's open and shut because obviously we don't know if SMU is going to come back, if they're going to be cleared, or this also has to be a possibility. Upon arrival, might a team test positive where they have a couple positives when they arrive in Fort Worth, and they would be eliminated from the tournament even before they play. Or maybe a team plays Thursday, and they test positive the next day. Then they would be eliminated. In that case, the tournament field would be reseeded, and basically everyone would move up a peg. So if SMU comes in Fort Worth and they test positive, they test positive, they would be scrapped, and UCF would actually move up a rung onto the 5 line, which means UCF would go from playing Thursday night to Friday afternoon.
So what you're saying is that if somebody above UCF has a COVID issue and they can't go, that would give UCF a free bye, is what you're saying.
It's sort of like a half bye because they would not be playing. They would be playing a team also on a bye. They'd be playing the 4 seed who is not playing on Thursday either. But yes, they would not be playing on that Thursday. But this goes for anybody. This could go for any team. I mean, obviously, is Temple going to be available to play? If they're not available to play, then teams like Tulane and ECU would move up a spot, and the 11 seed would basically be eliminated. And then, if you're Houston, and it does sound like Houston's going to play in this tournament. and I understand you want to play basketball to stay in rhythm and whatnot, but like, why would Houston want to play in this tournament? Because I know Houston right now is not the 1 seed, but they are absolutely locked into this NCAA tournament as either a 2.
They're the number 5 in the net. Number 5.
Yeah, they're going to be a 2 or a 3 seed regardless of what they do in the tournament.
Right. They're either a 2 or a 3. Wichita State, which is the 1 seed in this tournament right now, is not even close to the bubble. They need to win the tournament to even get in to the NCAAs. Yeah. Memphis and SMU are sort of on the bubble, but not really.
Memphis quietly has played themselves into even being in the conversation for the bubble. It's kind of funny. They've kind of been under the radar.
Yeah.
Since really that 2 wins over UCF with Penny and Company.
Right. Well, to give you real quick, I'm so sorry, Murph. Wichita's at 62, Memphis is at 55, SMU's at 54 in the net. So go ahead.
What's sad about SMU is, SMU is we talked about their offense, and they're a really good team before COVID has gotten them, and they had to shut things down, and they haven't played since early February. They played games and kept on their current track. This is probably an easy second team in from the American, but now they've really got to probably win the tournament just to get in. So it's going to be weird. I think there is a non-zero chance that we will have a team that either doesn't choose to play or can't play or is eliminated during the tournament because of COVID reasons. Like they're in Texas. They're going to go to Fort Worth.
Lest we forget.
Has been in the news this week for its this sort of a abdication of COVID protocols. So look. It's going to be a weird tournament.
Texas has decided that COVID-19 is over, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah. So UCF would be the 6th if they win against ECU. That's the end of their season. And then if nothing else happens, they would play ECU again, assuming ECU loses to Cincinnati this weekend, which I believe we can assume. If that all happens, they would play Thursday night. And then we'll talk on Wednesday and see if the field has changed at all since then. Right. I don't know. And
which
then
there's a chance. There's a possibility.
Yeah, we don't know.
CJ Walker did not play against Tulsa on Tuesday. He was shown wearing a boot during pregame warmups, did not dress out. Johnny Dawkins said after the game that he has had a continuation of rolling his right ankle, which sounds awful. I mean, it's just brutal.
Tape that kid up, man.
Yeah. In any case, Johnny was not firm on if CJ will play tonight against ECU. He said he was hopeful that if he couldn't play tonight, that he would play in the tournament. But again, this is all very.
Don't you feel, Murph, the caution there is you just don't play him here and get ready for next week? I mean, obviously I could be proven wrong by the time this, depending on when people are listening to this, but I would be surprised if he played personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me if they again opted on the side of caution here, thinking that they can beat ECU without him. I mean, really, they beat a much better team in Tulsa without him.
Although granted, they could have used him with the rebounding, especially in that second half.
Yeah, no, I agree. But you're right. If he's not 110%, which is not a real percentage because no one can be more than 100%, then they're not going to play him. And we'll see if he can go next Thursday or Friday. Hopefully then. But the upshot here is we really don't have a firm idea of when CJ will play.
Murph casting shade on coaching cliches. I love it. If UCF, let's assume that the field stays the same and no one gets eliminated. So UCF would play again 7 p.m. ESPNU on Thursday. At least that's what we're thinking as of this second. If they win that game, that's game number 3. They would play the number 3 seed, which at this very second that we are recording this is the Memphis Tigers. So, as we know, things can change.
That's probably going to stay that way, by the way. I don't see Memphis falling out of that 3 seed or moving up to the 2 line.
Well, like we said, though, you have the ECU situation where they play against Cincinnati on Sunday to wrap up the regular season. By the way, Memphis and Houston on CBS at noon to wrap up the regular season.
Where's the game at?
Houston.
Oh, could that be Jim Nance's first college hoops game, perhaps? Maybe get a warm-up. He did that last year. He did the Houston game. It might have been against Memphis as well, so who knows?
Well, it's noon at the Fertitta Center on CBS. So, good chance to get a look at those two teams
Jim
coming
Nance
in.
is a UH alum. That's why.
Wasn't he roommates with Fred Couples? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, won the Masters. Yeah, back in '92. There, our good friend Jim Nance, right, Murph?
Hey, you've got a picture with him. So
yeah, you still have that picture up there. Yeah.
Thanks to you. You took the photo. Fantastic photo.
Look, I would be shocked if Memphis goes into Houston this weekend and wins that game, which is why I'm very confident that Memphis will remain on that 3 line. Which I don't know. That doesn't sound like great news. That doesn't sound like great news for UCF, considering what we've seen from those two teams this season.
All right. Well, either way, we'll still get UCF against ECU, and that will be tonight. 9 p.m. start in Greenville on ESPNU. Don't forget the women's game is at 5. That's on
the U.
That's on the U as well. So
just
all UCF all the time
ESPNU for the
on
next
ESPNU
week.
tonight.
Yeah.
It's great. Love it. Keep it up.
ESPN UCF is what should be channeled.
Look at the marketing. Look at the marketing, Eric Lopez. All right. So keep an eye on that, and and obviously we'll have the previews of the tournament coming up in the over the weekend once we figure out exactly where and who UCF is going to be playing. All right, stick around. When we get back, we'll talk a little football news. Yes, a little bit of football news. Gus Malzahn, the Gus bus, is out of the station. Man, look at this. It's already roaming around, scooping up guys out of that transfer portal. Stick around. We'll talk about that and more when we get back. It's the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here on a Thursday afternoon. We're going to talk about football here. Not too much to talk about. There really wasn't too much news. We're meeting the new assistants day by day, and thanks to Dan Forcella for setting this up. Every day over the next couple weeks, we're doing little press conferences with each of the new assistant coaches and getting to know them better. Drew Glukov has been all over that, and we appreciate him, as have the both of you guys, so thanks to you fellas. And we've been live tweeting them out, so that's kind of cool. But here's what I want to talk about, Brian Murphy. The legitimacy of Gus Malzahn at UCF is making its way through the transfer portal. Because we've already heard about Mark Anthony Richards transferring to UCF from Auburn, the running back, and he's going to get some run. Couple more transfers coming in. Nate Craig Myers, he's a wide receiver, 6'2", 205. Played for Gus at Auburn, then transferred to Colorado State. Now he said that he's going to super transfer to UCF, super transfer obviously being a grad student, to finish out his eligibility. He's actually played 5 seasons, and he's going to play a 6th season for UCF. Big Cat Bryant, defensive lineman, big fella, 6'4", 226. Outside defensive end. He's coming to UCF. Boy, this is starting to get pretty interesting around here. It feels like Gus is getting the band back together, and I'm not alone in thinking that, because of all people, Kerryon Johnson actually went on Twitter and said, "Hey, we getting the band back together down in UCF? What's up with this?" So. But this is a real, I don't know, this is a real story right now. Like, with Gus going down there, or coming down here, he's pulling in guys who he has coached before, and wants to, and they want to play for him again. I think that speaks to a number of things. What are your thoughts, Murph?
Well, one thing you just said, you just read off of Big Cat Bryant's vitals of 6'4", 220. He's listed on Auburn's website at 6'5", 250, which seems like a massive difference.
Well, he's even bigger than I thought. Okay.
I think he is much closer to 250 as a defense. It certainly looks good. I mean, both because both these players have Auburn ties. We'll start with Nate Craig Myers. As UCF continues to compile guys with 3 names, it's more size for the receiving core. He spent a couple years at Auburn, wasn't terribly productive, has spent the last 2 years at Colorado State, wasn't terribly productive there either. But did show some flashes of big playmaking ability, had some long gains, long bomb catches. And again, 6'2", we've talked about this since the season ended, that with the certain players that were leaving, the Jacob Harris's, Trey Nixon's, UCF needed to get bigger in the receiving core. Brandon Johnson from Tennessee is already here. Now Nate Craig Myers is 6'2". I think that's just another way that they can add more size to their receiving core. The tie-in here is not only was he at Auburn, but he's from Dade City. He's a Florida kid. So for him, it's sort of like, coming back home. But Big Cat Bryant, this is a massive get. I'm really excited about this because, one, I think he's going to come in and slot in right away as a starter at DN. This is not a guy who is like trying to reclaim his career. Big Cat Bryant was a second-team All SEC selection in 2019. If he had a season in 2020, we would not be talking about him going to UCF. He would be going to the draft. Absolutely his college career would be over. He would be playing for the draft. Unfortunately, he sprained an ankle the week before Auburn's first game. He did play a lot of those games, but he was never 100%. Really fought through that injury for most of the year. His stats were down, and it really affected him. And then he decided, after the bowl game, the bowl game that he played in 2020 was here in Orlando. He played it in the I believe it was the Citrus Bowl against Northwestern. And they talked to him after the game, and some of the Auburn media asked him if this was his last game or whether he was going to come back or go to pro. And he said then that he didn't know and he'll figure it out. I really do believe that if he was healthy all season and he was the Big Cat Bryant that had been at Auburn for the last couple of years, he's been there for 4 years, but really the last couple of years he's really shined. If he was that guy, he would not be going to any more colleges. He'd be going. But I don't think UCF's game that he was hurt. Also, UCF's game that Tennessee fired their entire staff, because before this, Big Cat Bryant had already committed to transfer to Tennessee because his high school coach was a defensive coach at Tennessee. But he was on the staff that was headed by Jeremy Pruitt. I don't know if UCF fans know this, but Tennessee's staff has gone over a bit of an overhaul since then. And with the coach, I know, it's breaking news. So with his high school coach no longer at Tennessee, Big Cat Bryant said, "Well, I don't need to stay here either." I want to make this very clear. Big Cat Bryant did not leave Tennessee because he doesn't like Josh Heupel. I think people wanted to connect dots about he decommitted from Tennessee because he doesn't want to play for Josh Heupel. No, he wanted to go there to play for the guy who coached him in high school, who then was no longer there. So he wanted to find another spot. He's reconnecting with Gus Malzahn. He's reconnecting with Travis Williams, who was his defensive coach at Auburn for many years. So this makes sense. This is a huge get for UCF. He's a big tackles for loss guy. I'm really excited for this. I mean, I know we kind of poo-poo Mark Anthony Richards a little bit last week because he hasn't had a whole lot of he hasn't done a whole lot in his career yet. He only played 1 year. He had a few carries last season. It was okay. Nate Craig Myers, he's been around for a long time, but it really hasn't put up big numbers. I don't know what he's going to add other than just size. Is he going to be a game breaker? I don't know.
Experience. He's like 24 years old.
Yeah, but Big Cat Bryant's going to come in right away, guys, and start, I think, right away. And we're talking about a future NFL player.
Yeah, this is really exciting. Eric, this is the Gus effect at work, right?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's the Gus effect. And what's so fascinating, and just talking, I was Coach Gibbs, you mentioned the assistants talking. What's fascinating to me is they're saying, look, we don't know what we're going to run until we know what the players are good at. We want to see what they can do and cannot do. And I think that's so refreshing because a lot of times coaches and coaching staffs force systems into a roster that doesn't fit.
Yep.
And I feel like the thing that's impressed me about, listening to these assistants and Gus talk is they can adapt and they could definitely relate. And I think that's why players are coming here, because they know that. They know they could trust this staff to put them in the best position for them to succeed. And I think that's what you're seeing, and that's why they're having the success of guys coming over that you're seeing.
I'm so glad you made that point, because how many times have I said it to you guys, off air, that the mark of a truly great coach is he doesn't fit the players to his system. He fits the system to his players. That's for all the talk about like what Gus has done, from the high school level through A-State, even the 1 year he's there, into Auburn, he knows how to adapt his system to the personnel that he has. And that's a rare talent for a lot of coaches. And I think that's going to serve UCF well here going forward. Now, Murph, are there still some holes left that you think UCF has to fill here in the time that we have between, now and spring practice in terms of what personnel they need to get in there? Or do you think that right now they're pretty set with what they have?
Well, I think those holes will be filled by some of the hundreds of recruiting offers that Gus Malzahn has sent out over the past week. Oh my God! Look, it's been a lot for people who have not been following. It appears that Gus Malzahn and UCF Football is offering to basically everybody, and among those everybody's, you're going to get 25 kids. I want to talk a little bit about this. So again, I don't know if they're going to bring another transfer. I thought running back, wide receiver, and DB were some weak spots for them they needed to address. They've done wide receiver. They've done running back. I think the DBs are going to try to trust some of the freshmen that were, the freshmen last year going into their second year. Also having Devontae Dawson back after he opted out last season would help as well. So maybe they don't address it there. But I want to talk about Gus Malzahn, what he's doing right now, basically casting a wide net around the country and offering anybody who is willing to listen, a UCF scholarship. I think this is – I have two thoughts about this. One, I think this could excite the fan base because if you look at a lot of the kids that he's off, these are 4-star kids. There's a couple of 5-star – there's at least 2 5-star kids that I know about that have been offered by Gus and the program. And I know that excites the fan base, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's doing this, because you can't sign all these kids. You don't have enough spots. They have, I think, 22 to 25. I'm not exactly sure the number, but you're not going to get all these kids. But making it look like you're making the effort to get them is appealing to the fans. Secondly, because they can't sign all these kids, and I do believe that UCF will probably end up still with maybe only 1 4-star, maybe 2 4-stars in this next class. This, I feel like, is going to leave – this is like raising expectations that UCF can't possibly meet, and thus the fan base will be disappointed when next year's recruiting class has a bunch of 3-stars in it, and they go, well, what happened to all these 4-stars we were offering? Like, guys, we've talked about how stars don't matter, but as long as you get the players you want – that's what matters. And I think those players that he's offering, there's probably a good chance that most of them don't come to UCF. But and let's not be disappointed by that. I really think like there's an effort being made to excite the fan base. If they don't get them, they don't get them. I get it. But I don't think Josh Heupel ever recruited this type of athlete, this caliber of athlete before in such wide numbers.
I don't even think Scott Frost did either.
No, and just when it comes back that UCF might end up with, as far as stars go, kind of the same rating, maybe a little better than in years past. I don't want fans to be disappointed because they got their hopes up after seeing all these offers put out there.
Well, Murph, David Gibbs agrees with everything you just said. That's what he pretty much parallels what he said in his presser this week, the co-defensive coordinator. He's like, because they asked him about the 4-star that he was asked that. He's like, that's a setup question, isn't it? Like he's like, look, we want players in that fit our system, whether they're 4-stars, 3-stars, whatever, because, we got to know, what we need in our team. It's great that you have a 4-star, but if you bring in a 4-star where you're already deep in a position and they're not going to play, what's the point? Basically, I'm paraphrasing what he's saying. So I think it gets overblown on stuff. I think the big thing they want to do is they want to be in the mix for a lot of these athletes, and I think they know they're not going to get all of them. I think it's just, okay, who fits us, who's the guy we really need to go after, and then who's our backup plan and plan C. And I think that's they have a plan. And and that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I think so. I just don't want fans to be disappointed when UCF ends up with like maybe 1 4-star out of all these kids.
Oh, come on, boo! What's going on?
That's probably what's going to happen.
Recruiting has failed.
Brian, why aren't we recruiting this area? And in the Panhandle in Florida, we got like 8 stars there. Like, what are they doing?
By the way, like you wanted UCF to recruit Florida more. He is recruiting Florida a lot, but that's because again he's offering it to everybody. So by just sheer number, he's offering more offers to kids in Florida because he's offering to everybody in Georgia, anyone in the Southeast, Texas. It doesn't matter. Like just everybody.
Hey, just remember, we're the future of college football now, guys.
I liked that video, by the way. I like that video. That was very good.
I'm not gonna lie, I do. I kind of good.
By the way, we have we didn't get to talk about this on last week's podcast, but we have a spring game. Set for
that's right.
April, right?
April the 10th. We don't know what time it is. We do know that there will be fans permitted. Don't know if they're going to stream it just yet, but I guess we'll be working out those details later.
Biggest spring game of all time program history.
I will.
I'll make an announcement right here. I'm not going to that.
Wow! Murph bomb, right there.
I will be doing something else.
You know who is going to that?
Also remember the
Yours
voice
truly.
of UCF Knights.
No, stop saying that. That's Mark Daniels. He will be there. But I will be there. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, how much do you really learn? I mean, like, what's the offense going to really look like? I don't think it's going to look too overly different.
Well,
they're going to keep things pretty basic. But.
I mean, I kind of joke about it, but there is a buzz here.
Yeah.
Like I mean, and I can tell you because I do a lot of numbers. Like the social media numbers for UCF, like the Gus Malzahn videos have exploded. Like it's done big numbers. He was just on Marty Smith on his show, Marty and McGee. He was on with Feinbaum. I mean, he's going to be available, and people are interested. Obviously, Knight fans are interested. I think non-Knight fans are interested.
There's a lot of national interest. Yeah. A lot of national interest.
It's exciting. I mean, there's a buzz. And so while I do laugh about it, I do think it's one of the most anticipated spring games for a lot of reasons. One being that Gus, seeing how Gus and things look. Even though we all know, nothing. You're not going to see anything. You're not going to learn anything. But I would say, Jeff, wouldn't you agree? This is right up there with maybe Scott Frost's first spring game. Like and that was right. Like
we're both spring game. Yeah, we're both spring game skeptics, right? But there was a definite buzz around the Scott Frost spring game, and I think that the fact that UCF kind of turned it into a sort of like a football carnival, I think was part of the big draw of it. Like they had the concert and they had the bounce houses everywhere and the food trucks and the whole thing. Obviously, we won't get that this year, unfortunately. But there is more buzz around it. I think were it not for COVID, we would see a lot more. We would see even that much more buzz around it than we normally would. Because right now we're just going to be basically looking at football, right? Instead of like having a nice day out at UCF football in the month of April. But I'm intrigued to see it. I mean, maybe we can pick up some little key differences between what UCF was doing with Josh Heupel and what we're planning on seeing from Gus Malzahn now. So, are we going to see much? I don't know, but
no, you will not.
I want to see. I just want to catch a glimpse. Maybe that's the anticipation of it. It's got we got the new car smell. It's back.
By the way, I already know where Brian's going to be that day. He actually has a legitimate reason not to be at the spring game. All right, ready for this?
Okay. Can't wait.
April 10th, 1:10 first pitch at the Trop. Yankees. Rays.
Yeah.
I'd be down.
Murph, you can catch up with our friend Chad Mottola.
Yeah.
It's actually not a bad idea. That's actually not a bad idea.
Murph, we're going to force you to cover that. We're not going to take a no. You're going to have to miss the spring game. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness!
There are important things
I know
afoot.
It's a real bummer. God, the spring game. Can we just call it a spring practice? Can we stop with the game practice thing? It overrates it.
Yes, spring scrimmage. Let's call it that. Let's call it that. All right, we'll do that. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we get back, lots to talk about in the grab bag. We've got baseball whomping Ole Miss, and then Not doing the same against Stetson quite, but still wild game last night. Softball, volleyball, soccer, and plenty more when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Welcome back in. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here on recording this on this Thursday afternoon. I'm going to try and hurriedly edit this so it gets up before the women's basketball game at 5 o'clock. All right. We got a lot to talk about, though, outside of that. Let's start with UCF Baseball. Wild week for them, huh, Murph? First, you go up to Ole Miss. You're playing number one. You were remarkably cool on expectations heading into the weekend series with Ole Miss. And what do? They go in and they beat Ole Miss on Friday, 3-2. They lose on a walk-off on Saturday in the first game, and then come back and beat them 7-2 in the second game on Saturday. So they take 2 out of 3 from the number one team in the country. Of course, now last night, different result entirely. In its weird game up at Melching Field, UCF loses to Stetson 6-5. Which is a bummer. But I want to talk about the Ole Miss game, the Ole Miss series first, because that was what in the world happened?
Well, UCF's pitching showed up.
They did.
That is what happened. Because obviously it didn't go that way against FAU. They were cleaner in the field in some games too. That helped. And the bat stayed pretty hot. The most impressive part of that series last weekend was coming back from that game one loss in which UCF was up 5-3 going to the bottom of the ninth inning. They lose that game 6-5. There were a couple of fielding miscues in that ninth inning that exacerbated issues that led to the defeat. And yet UCF, after that really heartbreaking loss, comes back within 45 minutes, scores first, scores early. A.J. Jones is dominant on the mound. And really, they kind of put their foot on Ole Miss's throat in that game, and where really they could have been, down on themselves and beating themselves up and sort of giving that game up, and they absolutely did not. It was the most game I thought of the entire weekend. But it really was the pitching, and I thought that is more of what we expected to see, certainly from the likes of Hunter Pattison and Colton Gordon. I thought A.J. Jones striking out 10 over 6 was incredible. That kind of shocked me. That was pretty shocking. He was also really efficient. His changeup is really, really good. But I wonder. That seems like something that won't be consistent. We're all hoping for consistency. I have more faith in Gordon and Pattison than I do with Jones. I want to see what he looks like this weekend against Liberty, but certainly not taking anything away from them. They were dynamite that past weekend on the mound against Ole Miss.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm so glad that Pattison got into the act. I mean, he was pretty decent at, he gave up 3 earned and 6 hits over 5, but he was good. And the bullpen looked like they were pulling it pretty well together. Bummer for David Litchfield, that Ole Miss got hot in that ninth inning. But aside from that, I mean, even the bullpen I thought performed really well on Friday. They were really good. I mean, they basically shut Ole Miss down, aside from the one home run. But in a game where they gave themselves a chance to win in the latter innings, and obviously with Crouch's homer that put UCF up 2-1, and then McCabe knocking in that run in that fielder's choice, that was tremendous for UCF, and Litchfield got the save in that night. So it was so close to getting the sweep, but. Then they come back. They play Stetson at Melching Field in a game that was really weird. UCF fell down 4-1 by the 5th. In the 6th, UCF got within 2, got 2 to get within 1, and then in the 8th, a whole bunch of weird stuff happened in order to give UCF the lead. Noah Orlando, there was so the situation was. In the 8th, UCF had runners on the corners, and we're down 1. Noah Orlando goes from first to try and steal second, and the Stetson catcher tried to throw him out, and their pitcher, their outstanding closer, by the way, Danny Garcia, who ended up getting the win actually as the pitcher of record, caught the ball like the catcher was just throwing it back to him. And then
he had to jump up. He had to jump up to get it though. Like
right, it was like there must have been a part of him that was like, dude, where are you throwing this ball? And he sort of dropped it. They kick it around the infield a little bit, and then that allowed Jordan Rathbone to score. They charged the error to the catcher, which I don't think they should have done that. I mean, he was doing his job trying to throw out the runner at second, but a little double steal action. Rathbone scores to tie it, and then a little bit later, Pablo Ruiz with a little CNI single out to right that knocks in the go-ahead run that scores Orlando, and then he gets himself thrown out at second as he was trying to, as they were trying to throw the ball home. But then in the bottom of the inning, Stetson scored a pair to take the lead. UCF had a shot in the ninth. It didn't work out, and Stetson gets the 6-5 win, and they clinched the series sweep of UCF. It's been a while since Stetson has actually swept UCF, hasn't it?
I believe so. Maybe not that long, because 2018 they were pretty dynamite.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Aren't we kind of really overanalyzing a midweek game? Like, and
here's the thing.
Good.
That's why. Yeah, Stetson is off to a 10-0 start. That's their best start in 108 years. And their pitching, their pitching's good. That team's got some arms. Surprise, surprise, Stetson can pitch. So how do we measure these last four games, taking 2 out of 3 from the number one team in the country, but then losing that close one against Stetson?
I really was skeptical about Stetson going into this game. I thought if you look at they'd beaten UCF last week here at home, but if you look at their other wins against like FAMU and I think it was Northern Alabama, it's not terribly impressive competition. So I felt like what was their 9-0 record was kind of soft. But yeah, that pitching staff is really, really good. They churn out quality. They churn out quality starts like nobody's business right now. And the hitting is just enough to get it done. And so yeah, I think Stetson is legit. I have no problems. I really had no problems with that loss. The problems really were UCF again, somehow being terrible and also good defensively in the field.
There were some web jams, and then they also committed 4 errors.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. There's Jordan Rathbone crashing into an unpadded part of the right field wall to catch a ball, and then there's a bad pickoff throw. And it just it was a lot of sloppiness, but also a lot of sterling play in the field. So it was just interesting, and that's been happening a lot for UCF this year. Their defense is kind of an issue. Right now, it's a big issue for them right now. It's the reason why they lost that game on Wednesday night against Stetson. I like this lineup a lot. I think Alex Freeland is off to an amazing start, obviously. He was hitting 500 going into that Stetson game last night, and I believe he's kind of sold his soul to the BABIP gods, where he's just hitting balls on the ground that sort of find a hole. And I feel like he will cool off at some point because, again, sometimes those holes won't be there. But right now it's fun to watch a freshman play as well as he's playing. Ben McCabe has a lot of power. It's been great. The pitching's back on track. So I like those parts. My concern is the fielding, the depth of the bullpen, which doesn't seem to be terribly deep right now. It seems like the number of guys that Greg Lovelady is trusting in big situations is only about 4 or 5 guys in that bullpen. With Zach Hunsaker, who, again, looks really, really good. Mm-hmm. David Litchfield, Zach Bennett, and, you can throw Billy McKay in there. But I don't know who else he really trusts out of that group. And so it's kind of a thin pen. And then one of the major issues that I thought was kind of cleared up last night, hopefully, was Jack Sinclair, the preseason all-conference pick, the anointed – or assumedly anointed closer coming into this year, who had been really, really messy on the mound, just had not had any control in his first 3 appearances. He had hit at least one batter in each of his first 3 appearances. He had lots of walks, pitched 3 innings to start the game against Stetson, and was perfect. Now, pitched to a lot of contact, did not get a ton of swing and misses, but got a lot of soft ground balls, got a lot of soft fly balls, a lot of soft contact. Just to see Jack pitching that well is big for that bullpen. They're going to need him to be Jack Sinclair, not only to lengthen that bullpen out, which seems, again, rather shallow, but he can be the guy who, come the 8th inning or the 9th inning, can be a stopper in a close game. And it looked like that last night. Yeah,
he looks really good last night. I think it was a solid performance overall. So UCF right now, The record, which we don't pay too close attention to this right now because they only played 2 home games and they're 3-5 right now. But 3 games at home against Liberty: Friday 6, Saturday 4, Sunday 11. Liberty right now coming in is 3-5. Anything of note? Not really. They got swept by TCU earlier, or was it just last week? In fact, over the weekend, didn't score more than 2 runs in any game. Got blown out in 2 of them. Anything we should be concerned about? Oh, by the way, all 3 of those games will be on ESPN Plus. Anything we should be concerned about here?
No, I mean, just not more than what I've already talked about. Just
don't lose.
Yeah, well, no, I agree. Like, they lost 2 out of 3 from Campbell, and TCU, while good, like, really obliterated them for that series in Fort Worth. So this is not a great Liberty team, and UCF just needs to, again, clean up the defense a little bit. And I really want to see if that pitching staff can do it again, especially AJ Jones. I'm really interested to see AJ Jones start on Sunday, because I feel like at some point people are going to stop chasing things in the dirt.
Yes, at some point. Yes, maybe. All right. So that's the latest on UCF baseball right now. Let's hop over to softball, Eric Lopez. Sweep of McNeese State in 3 games. Pitching looked good. Hitting looked good in the 3rd game. They shut out UNF last night 8-0 in a shortened game because of the run rule. This team just keeps rolling here. They're 10-2, and they've got 3 against Kennesaw State, 1 Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Where are we sitting? And that's before they play number 2 Arizona at home on Monday at 3 p.m. That is a huge game. Where are we standing right now with UCF softball? What are we going to hope to glean from the Kennesaw State series before they face the Wildcats?
Kennesaw State is led by head coach Trip McKay. He's a very legendary hitting coach at Oklahoma, won a national title there. He's in his 3rd season at Kennesaw. They're kind of high expectations there. It should be in the contender for the ASUN championship. They were 21-4 last year before the season came to an end. I actually just spoke to him prior to us recording. He's got a young team that he's kind of up and down right now, so they're coming to Orlando. So that's the challenge. The key for UCF is not to overlook them and look ahead to that Arizona showdown on Monday, which is huge. It's a top 25 showdown. Arizona's ranked 2 or 3, depending on where you look in the polls. They're a national title contender. So the key is for them not to overlook Kennesaw, and I don't think they will. I think they're a veteran team. They took care of North Florida, like you said. Aaliyah White with a shutout. Keeps on rolling. And then the offense is clicking. The offense is in the top 15 in runs scored, averaging over 8 runs a game, batting average, slugging, on base, you name it. So they're clicking on all cylinders right now. It's just keeping it going. So I'm curious to see how they come out. It's a weird schedule. It's a Saturday single game, doubleheader Sunday. I'm curious to see how they come out against Kennesaw, who will certainly be ready to go.
I want to real quick update some statistical things on softball, just to go a little bit more in depth. Aaliyah White right now, 6-0. 0.94 earned run average, 3 shutouts in 6 games. She's got 41 strikeouts and only 11 walks over 37 1/3. That's pretty good, folks. And opponents, by the way, are hitting 178 against her. Bested only by Gianna Mancha, who has the only loss, she doesn't have the only loss, but she's 3-1 on the year with a 1.54 ERA and a .79 WHIP. And opponents are hitting 165 against her, and she's struck out 26 over 22 2/3. Hitting-wise, UCF has, I'm looking at their regular players who've played 12 or more. All but one of them are hitting over 320 right now. That's pretty wild right now. Georgia Blair's got 6 home runs and 16 runs batted in. But don't forget, Juliana Wilson's got 13 RBIs, and Jasmine Esparza's got 13 RBIs. So
balanced top to bottom.
Yeah, they've got of players who've played all games so far. They have 6 who have an OPS over 1,000. I mean, this team's going. They have a team OPS of 1056. Like this is pretty wild what we're seeing from them right now. And I know it's early, but this is a really good. Is this the best hitting team UCF team we've ever seen?
It's got the potential to be, for sure. Now we got to let it play out for a full year. But yes, I mean, it has the potential to be that because they've got power, they've got speed, they got everything you would want. Now, obviously, the pitching will get better as they face Arizona being among them moving forward. But yes, I think from an potential standpoint, yes, I think this could go down as the best offensive team, if not the best overall team. But they got to prove it on the field. Yeah. And like you said, it's still early for that. But they're locked in. I mean, they could beat you from many different ways, and they have a lot of different options they could do. I mean, you haven't even mentioned how they're among the top stealing teams in the country. They don't just hit. They don't hit for power. They hit for power. They could go for speed. I think they stole 4 bases in the win against North Florida. Hit 2 homers. So. They've got a little bit of everything, deep pitching-wise. They feel they're
such a nightmare for opposing pitchers, aren't they?
Yeah, because she can give them a lot of different looks. They're a deep roster. So she, I think we've talked about it on this podcast. She's very much into analytics. And so there are players on the bench that maybe don't start but will come into the game and play because they fit a certain matchup against certain pitchers. The pitchers, I guarantee you, whoever faces UCF will not see the same look over and over again. That's for sure. They will give them different looks and try to work matchups that they like.
All right, so once again, they have Kennesaw for 3 this weekend. Monday, 3 p.m., right? Arizona, and you've got
Monday, 3 Eastern, big one. Me and my Francesca Anea, 3-time All-American, will be joining me for that telecast. Should be a big one with Arizona. By the way, the UNF game, Gus Malzahn was in attendance catching softball. Coach Baird talked about that after the game, and this is what she had to say about Gus watching a little softball.
Oh, it's so awesome. I mean, it wasn't one of the warmest nights, so that diehard support is great to have. And I hear him and Christy, more so Christy, are big softball fans. So we're excited about that because we're huge football fans over here, and it just shows how strong we are as a department and connected already. And so we're just excited for what he's going to do here, and just not only with his team, but the girls get to see him, and that just allows us to really, really feel that we're connected and we mean something too as a softball team.
So that was Coach Bear on the postgame talking about Gus Malzahn, who, by the way, boys, here's a little trivia for you. Gus is now the 3rd UCF football head coach to watch a game at the UCF softball complex. George O'Leary went to a handful of games, even threw out a first pitch one year. And Scott Frost went over to see some UCF softball. And now Gus joins that list.
I knew Frost went over to see some games. I didn't know that George went over, because every time they would always have the football team would divide up into classes, freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, and then the winner, they would play some softball games, and then the winners would play the coaches in a game when they ended spring practice. So I knew he was over there a couple times, but I didn't know that he went to actual games. Yeah,
he did. He went to quite a few of them. And during those days, I think they honored him after they won the 2007 title, from what I recalled. So, yeah, he did go to a bunch of games now. We just got to get Murph to come to a game now. Murph, you got Mike Kendrea in Arizona, diehard Yankee fan, Mike Kendrea.
I was thinking about when you listen to the coaches who have attended a UCF softball game, and you didn't mention Josh Heupel. That's cue the people like, see, he didn't care about us. Why wasn't Josh Heupel there? He didn't care.
The only time Josh was at softball was when they were playing that slow pitch game. Remember the football guys? They would play that slow pitch with the coaching staffs. You know what I'm talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, all right.
There you go.
So, Arizona, Monday 3. Don't forget the 3-game set with Kennesaw. All those games will be on ESPN Plus, and you've got them all, right, Eric?
That's the plan.
All right.
Yeah, cool. We won't. Yes, we will have the Arizona game. We'll have the doubleheader on Sunday against Kennesaw.
Excellent. That will be fun. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. So, all right. Volleyball. Quick update for you on that one after the Friday loss at Florida State in 5 back on the 26th of February. Tough loss, by the way, for volleyball because they were right there. Won the first 2. Although they got really out hit in the second. Really, Florida State kind of outplayed them the last 4 sets of the match, and then took care of business in the 5th. McKenna Melville had 18 kills. A lot of aces for UCF. They're serving really well right now. 8 total aces. Amber Olsen had 5 of them. But right now, UCF still... So that ends the undefeated run for UCF volleyball, but they're still 8-1. and 2-0 in the conference, and they have their conference season opening matches against ECU Friday at 6 and then Saturday at 2. So remember, they're playing the teams in their side of the American twice, both matches at that particular site. So the only 2 matches against ECU will be at UCF. Then they go to Cincinnati the week after, and then back home for South Florida for 2 at the end of March. And then that's it. That's the end of the regular season for UCF Volleyball. Now they do have a weekend off in between the Cincinnati trip and then the 2 which is March 12th and 13th, and then the 2 matches against the Bulls on the 26th and the 27th, and then at the start of April, it's AAC tournament time up in Cincinnati. So this volleyball season is moving along very, very quickly.
So here's the question. Obviously, they lose the 2-set lead to FSU. I personally think it could be the best thing to happen to them because it keeps them kind of level, refocus. And I expect them to blow out East Carolina. However, some worry that that psychologically affect them if they struggle against DC. Where do you fall under that?
No, I don't. I think that the whole the pressure of being undefeated is lifted off their shoulders. I think that bit's kind of overrated. But I also think that playing a tough game or a tough match on the road against an opponent such as Florida State, who, by the way, they beat in the first round of the NCAA tournament back in the fall of 2019. I also think that take is kind of overrated too, because I think that this is a much more mentally tough team that we've seen. And it all comes back to McKenna Melville, who is, like I said, I don't think she gets enough credit for how mentally tough she is. She plays chess out there when everybody's playing checkers. And it's one thing for the coaches to be like, hey, let's shake it off. But it's another thing for the players to be like, hey, we'll shake it off. We still got the conference season ahead of us. We got 6 big matches coming up. And we can set ourselves up really nicely for the conference tournament and get into the NCAA field. So I'm not too worried about that either way. I think they measured up very nicely with Florida State, who's a very good team. They should at least get a shot at the NCAA tournament in the ACC. They are an ACC contender. I think that UCF will be just fine after this. And I think that the key is going to be these last 4 matches: the at Cincy, and then the home for South Florida, and then whatever happens in the American tournament. I'm really intrigued to see what we get out of Cincinnati this year, because no Jordan Thompson, but what do you have that's still out there? What does Molly Alvey have up her sleeve, right? So I'm really interested to see what they do. But first things first, got to take care of business against ECU. UCF has done that in the past. Both those matches will be on ESPN Plus Friday at 6 and Saturday at 2 at the venue. So spring volleyball at the venue. Can't beat it, man. It's great. So I'm looking forward to that. Tennis. Oh, no, let's not do tennis just yet. Let's do soccer. Sorry. All right, men's soccer. Eric Lopez, what is happening here? Because they are 1-3. They lost, of course, the game to South Florida. Then they lost 3-1 at Tulsa last Saturday. So they've got a big bounce back stretch that they need to start compiling some wins right now, because they got Memphis at home, and of course they're splitting it's a 10-game season. All right, Memphis at home this Saturday, 6 p.m. They also wrap the season at Memphis, but this is a big spot for this team that all of a sudden finds themselves in a 2 games under 500, and the goals just aren't coming. They've only scored 3 goals in 4 games so far this year.
Correct. That is a big problem there. They're getting the shots. They're just not finishing plays. We've talked about that, how they miss Cal Jennings and that finishing ability that he has. I think that's certainly been missed. But I think they also miss a Jonathan Dean in the back line, who was also a draft pick in the super draft a couple years ago. Was a high draft pick. I think
not the draft, the super draft.
That's correct. And then remember, Luis Perez signed a couple weeks ago with the pro team. There was no Yannick Ertl in the Tulsa match. We don't know why. He just wasn't available. So they went to their young goalkeeper, Douglas. And again, I just think this is going to turn into a spring season where you're really more about developing guys and maybe get ready for the fall, to be honest. They've dug themselves a big hole here. You could try to make the top 4 in the conference tournament and see what happens. But It's just anything. It just doesn't right now. It's not clicking, and he's trying to find answers. I mean, he's trying to shuffle lineups. He's using different guys, so he's searching. They're searching, and right now they just don't have the answers.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have the quite reliable scoring that they've had, against when they've had Cal Jennings, and and let's give some credit to other teams are playing pretty decent defense against them too. But, right now it's going to be a tough. Now, the good news is for UCF, though, I will say this. Their toughest games right now are still ahead of them. So they can still kind of, if they can get hot at the right time, they still have both their games against SMU still to come. And Memphis right now is also struggling. They're 1-2. So they still have Memphis twice. If you're better than Memphis, you should win both of those games. That can get you back to 500. If you get hot, all right, you've already beaten Temple once, and you play them at home now. You got South Florida at South Florida. You lost them by 1 goal, and it was a late goal. So there is a shot here that they can get hot. If they can get hot at the right time, make a little bit of a run, obviously, right, we'd rather have them get hot at the end of the season than at the beginning, right? But the question is, have they dug themselves too big of a hole, at least at this point? So
I think it's too big, and they probably needed a pre-conference. They probably needed a non-conference to kind of figure things out.
Work the kinks out, yeah.
Yeah, it might be too late.
All right, well, we'll have to see. Scott Calabrese would probably tell us it's not too late. We still got a shot here. So Scott's probably like Aaron Rodgers right now. Just relax. We'll be all right. Women's soccer on the other side. They play Sunday at Memphis, their traditional conference bugaboo. They lost a tough one to Tulsa. It's their first loss of the year, 3-2. And they've been scoring goals, but here's a case where they actually gave up too many of them, including one in the 80th minute, or excuse me, in the 58th minute. They got one back in the 80th minute from Katie Bradley, who's been pretty good this year. She's kind of emerged as a real goal scoring threat. UCF had 23 shots to Tulsa's 8. And still came up short in this game. So, corner kicked them 13-5. They put a lot of pressure on Tulsa's goalkeeper, forced them to have to make 5 saves in that first half. But still, Tulsa came up with the goals when they needed it, including one of them. Eric, was 8 seconds after UCF scored the opening score of the game.
Yeah, I was. I watched some of the remember the young backline that Tiff talked with us about. I think it showed it a little bit there. They kind of misplayed some balls there. They didn't make the right plays. They kind of put Delay on a tough spot. One of the shots were pretty much looked like it was going to be a pass that just happened to go in the back of the net. It was just kind of one of those things. So tough loss. It's a tough loss because you had the lead, you blow it, and you lose. And now you got to go to Memphis, who's the favorites in the league. That's your rival. They're ranked top 25, and now all of a sudden you're 1 back of them. You lose this match, you're 2 back, and now the regular season title might be gone because, again, it's a sprint. So right. You just hope they can grow from that. I thought there were some positives on the offensive side, but yeah, I mean, defensively they're young and they're going to make mistakes, and they maybe made one too many up in Tulsa.
The good news is for them is they have 3 of their last 5 at home. After this game at Memphis, it's home for ECU, at South Florida, home for SMU, home for Houston. And right now, as we check the women's soccer standings, even though UCF is still in the lead, right, because they do points in the women's soccer standings, right? So they have 6 points. They're in the lead. Memphis is still trailing them at 3. And, of course, if they lose to Memphis, Memphis would get the tiebreaker. But since the bottom of the league, they still have yet to play them. Like Houston, for example, they're 0-1. They've only played 1 game all year. They've already beaten Cincinnati once, but they still have SMU on the slate. South Florida is 1-0 in conference, 2-0-1 overall. So I think that that's going to be another matchup to see. I mean, it may very well again come down to that, and then the race to the finish with Cincinnati, with Houston and SMU to wrap up the schedule. So at least it looks as of right now that the schedule might favor UCF women's soccer in terms of them playing the weaker teams later on in the season. So we'll have to see. All right. I want to go over to tennis real quick here, Eric Lopez, because we have a couple big setups here for the men's team. They're playing Stetson on Sunday. knocked off FGCU last week. They had that nice long break. They play Stetson, and they're right now at 4-2. So they're hitting a little, dare I say, cruise control phase of the schedule. Although South Alabama's receiving votes, they play them on Tuesday, and that's before they hit that another tough stretch, right, where they got at Florida State. They rescheduled the match at Georgia, and that's going to be on March the 21st. That's a Sunday. It was scheduled for February 13th. They moved it back. And then they play Arkansas, and then they're at SMU, at Oklahoma State. You know, that long Dallas road trip. But they're right in line to get hot right now, aren't they?
They are, and they're clicking on all cylinders, and I think you're right. I think they're just kind of gelling, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. I mean, these both tennis programs, I think could do a lot of damage. I don't read too much into them getting swept by Texas. There was some crazy weather. They moved the matches indoors, and so I wouldn't read them. And Texas, oh, by the way, is really good. They're the national champs for a reason. So, I mean, this is exciting. I think these two tennis programs are prime to not only conference championship possibilities, but making deep runs in the NCAA.
Real quick, I just want to check out ITA rankings. UCF right now is 19th in the Oracle ITA Division I men's tennis rankings. So, right now by the way, that's no change from the previous week. The women's team 7-3 right now. And they were the ones that lost. They lost at number 2 Texas, but they've got a match against Furman on Saturday, March the 2nd. That's at home at the USTA National Campus. Then they're playing Sunday against FAU, and then a week off, and then Saturday against UNF, and that's before they travel up to Georgia on March the 20th. Right now, the women's team in the ITA rankings, they're at 18th at 7-3. That's ahead of LSU. By the way, if you want to gauge yourself, right, Texas is number 2, Georgia's number 3 in the women's rankings. So, at least as of right now, look, both these teams are primed and ready as they head to the meat of their schedule, and they got a lot of matches in April too. I think. Well, look at that. For the women's, you got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches in the month of April, and then on the men's side, they're going to be busy in April too. 3, 4, 5, 6 matches in April. So, but the good thing is most of them are going to be home. So, hey, it works out pretty nice. I feel like they are flying under the radar, man. They're right. I think they're right where they want to be. They're good enough where they can challenge some of these teams, but they're flying right under the radar. And if they can get to, if they get to that NCAA's, if they get to the NCAA's in good shape and they stay healthy, look out, man. I think we're in for some long runs by both of these squads, don't you think?
I tend to agree. Murph, you could have some postseason tennis to cover once again.
I would like that. I've always enjoyed college tennis, especially UCF tennis. It's where I got my start in this weird business.
You cut your teeth with Bobby Cashman.
Under Coach Bobby Cashman.
At the rec courts.
The great thing about those sports, if you're a journalist or a writer, is that they really like having you out there because no one else really talks to them much, which is nice why we have this podcast, because no one else would be paying attention to these sports. So they like it when they get paid attention. When I covered Bobby Cashman and that crew in like 2005, I want to say, they actually invited me to be part of their conference championship team winning pictures, which is such an ethical boundary that no one should ever cross.
Wait, what? Are you serious? How did that happen? How did that happen?
Because I went to every match, and because back in 2005, I was not really aware of yo, by the way, if you're here as a journalist, you probably shouldn't be openly rooting for one of the teams on the court. And I definitely was. I was yelling through, because they used to have the tennis courts next to the Rec and Wellness Center, and I would and I'd be going from court to court, giving guys pep talks and telling them to come on, let's go, you got this. You probably shouldn't do that.
Wow,
right.
This is
wow. Bobby Cashman made you an honorary member of the team.
Yeah. Did you get a ring?
Yeah, it was wild. That was pretty wild.
Oh man. All right.
That's great.
Bobby's good. What a good dude he is. He's still around. He's still teaching tennis classes, I think, around Oviedo, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, so, what a good dude. All right. Let's go ahead.
The good news, by the way, Bernard, the facilities have upgraded since back in the day.
Yeah. By the way,
significant upgrade.
We still keep saying we need to go there, and we have not been there together, and hopefully we will. But so I hear the Lake Nona campus is a little bit better. It's a slight bit upgrade.
A little bit better, yeah. So
a little bit better.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Listen, thank you guys so much for joining us. It's busy, it's weird, it's all happening at once, and we're going to try and get this podcast up as quickly as possible because, again, we have those basketball games, women's basketball at home against South Florida. Thursday at 5, and that starts a long and wild weekend, another long and wild weekend of UCF sports, but we're getting through it one step at a time. And make sure you follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we are the home of UCF sports right here on SB Nation. You can follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, Spokes_Murphy. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. That's newsletter with a K. Jeremy Brenner has been pulling that together every weekday, 9 a.m., the latest UCF-related news and notes in your email inbox, courtesy of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, and, of course, the one and only Jeremy Brenner, of course. And by the way, special thanks to Danny Medina, who, as you know, she's been writing features for us here and there. She actually just moved up to Nashville, Tennessee to start her new job working for USA Today's network as a digital producer up there. But she's staying on board with us. But we wish Danny all the best at her new gig up in Nashville. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, oh, my God, they're turning
Heupel got her, too? Oh, my goodness.
No, that's the other side of the state. But, listen.
That's the best hire he's made.
Danny in Nashville is just going to be a problem. Like the city might just be a smoking hole in 6 months if we're not careful. So listen, Danny, congratulations on the new gig, and we're hoping that you can make your way back down to Orlando for some more events sooner rather than later. We can't really stomach losing another UCF person to the state of Tennessee once again. So please don't make yourself a stranger. All right. For Eric and Brian, I'm Jeff. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the weekend of sports. Catch you next week.